I never imagined my entire life could unravel in a single day. But that Tuesday in April, everything changed. I woke up expecting just another day at the office, unaware of the storm waiting to crash down on me. From the moment I stepped into work, it was one disaster after another. It started with my biggest client calling to pull all his investments, just like that. Years of work gone in minutes. Then, as I rushed to prepare for a high-stakes presentation, I spilled coffee all over my white shirt. There was no time to change, so I walked into the meeting looking like a complete mess. To top it off, my boss humiliated me in front of the entire department over a tiny error in a report. By 5 o'clock, I wasn't just frustrated, I was defeated. All I wanted was to go home, crack open a beer, and forget this nightmare of a day. But as I pulled into the driveway of our oversized suburban McMansion, the one Olivia insisted we buy, I had no idea the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. I was about to walk through the front door when I heard voices coming from the sitting room. The window was slightly open, and Olivia's voice was unmistakable. She sounded excited, like she always did when she was gossiping with her sister, Sophia. "We did it 3 times today," she said, laughing softly. "Once in the morning after Jack left for work, again during lunch, and just an hour ago. God, I forgot how good Durek is in bed." I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Durek. Her ex-boyfriend from college. The same Durek who broke her heart senior year. Sophia sounded shocked. "Aren't you worried Jack will find out?" Olivia laughed, her voice filled with disdain. "Jack, please. That oblivious workaholic wouldn't notice if the house burned down. Besides, it doesn't matter. I've made up my mind. I'm filing for divorce." The word divorce hit me like a punch to the stomach. Divorce? After just 3 years of marriage? Sophia hesitated. "Are you sure that's a good idea? Jack comes from money. You've got a pretty comfortable life with him." Olivia's voice turned smug. "I've got it all figured out. California is a community property state. I'll get half of everything, including his inheritance. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll be set for life. Then Durek and I can finally be together without having to sneak around." I stumbled back from the door, my heart pounding in my chest. She wasn't just cheating, she was planning to leave me and take everything I'd worked for. The woman I'd sworn to love and cherish was betraying me in the cruelest way possible. I somehow managed to get back into my car without making a sound. My hands were trembling as I started the engine and drove away. My mind raced with questions I couldn't answer. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? The signs had been there, her distraction, her lack of interest in our intimacy, the hushed phone calls she ended abruptly when I walked in. I just hadn't wanted to see them. I thought back to when we first met. It was at a charity gala not long after I started my job at the firm. Olivia had been stunning, charming, and so interested in me. Our romance had been a whirlwind, engaged within 6 months, married in less than a year. At the time, I'd ignored the voice in the back of my head telling me it was all happening too fast. Now, I realized Olivia had seen a naive, well-off guy and decided to sink her claws in. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner, the shock had started to wear off, replaced by cold, simmering anger. Like hell was I going to let her ruin me? She could break my heart, but she wasn't going to destroy my life. I sat in the booth, staring blankly at the menu, as a plan began to form. The first thing I needed was a lawyer, a damn good one. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for Ethan Goldstein. He was the best divorce attorney in the state, someone I trusted. I hit call. "Ethan, it's Jack Thorne," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "I need your help. How soon can we meet?" I sat across from Ethan Goldstein in the corner of a dimly lit diner, recounting every painful detail of Olivia's betrayal. From her affair with Durek to her smug plans to take half of everything I owned, I left nothing out. Ethan listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes or asking a clarifying question. His calm, focused demeanor was exactly what I needed in that moment. When I finished, Ethan laid out a clear plan. The first step was to secure my assets. California's community property laws would typically entitle Olivia to half of our shared wealth, but my inheritance could be protected if we moved quickly. Ethan planned to bring in a forensic accountant to document every detail of my finances, proving that much of my wealth was separate property. Next, he explained the importance of filing for divorce before Olivia could. By taking the first step, we'd control the narrative and set the tone for the proceedings. Ethan advised citing infidelity as grounds, a move that would work in my favor when the courts considered division of assets. He then addressed my immediate situation. Remaining in the house could jeopardize our strategy, especially if Olivia suspected that I knew about her affair. I needed to leave without drawing attention, packing only what was essential and staying somewhere safe until the divorce papers were served. Ethan assured me that everything would be handled swiftly and efficiently. Leaving the diner, I felt a flicker of resolve. The shock and devastation of Olivia's betrayal were still fresh, but Ethan's confidence gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt since this ordeal began. When I returned to the house that night, the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. Olivia's car was parked in the driveway, but the house was quiet when I entered. I moved quickly, grabbing clothes, toiletries, and a few important documents. Each step felt surreal, as though I were sneaking out of a stranger's home. In our bedroom, my gaze fell on a photo of Olivia and me from our honeymoon in Bali. The image captured a moment of pure happiness, or so I had believed. Now, the smiling faces felt like a cruel mockery of the love I thought we'd shared. I turned the photo face down on the nightstand and walked out without looking back. Over the next few days, I focused entirely on preparing for the legal battle ahead. I stayed at my friend Mike's house, sleeping on his lumpy couch and fielding calls with Ethan, accountants, and bank managers. The process was exhausting but necessary. Every meeting, every document signed, was a step closer to reclaiming control of my life. Ethan worked with precision, ensuring that my finances were secure and untouchable. By the time the divorce papers were ready to be served, I felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. The final confrontation was inevitable, and I decided I needed to be there when it happened. The day arrived quickly. I returned to the house in the late afternoon, knowing Olivia wouldn't suspect anything. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The sight of her, so calm and carefree, made my stomach turn. I thought of all the nights I had come home to this exact scene, blissfully unaware that she was already planning her escape. Moments later, the doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the quiet house, and I knew it was time. I stood back as Ethan's assistant handed Olivia the envelope containing the divorce papers. Her reaction was a mix of shock, confusion, and fear. She tore open the envelope with trembling hands, scanning the contents. The truth hit her like a physical blow. Her expression shifted from disbelief to desperation as the reality of her situation sank in. For a moment, Olivia tried to recover, grasping at explanations and excuses. But I felt no sympathy. Her betrayal, her manipulation, and her arrogance had destroyed whatever trust or love I once felt for her. The woman standing before me was a stranger, someone I no longer owed anything to. After retrieving the last of my belongings, I left the house for the final time. The chapter of my life with Olivia was closed. Leaving the house marked the end of one chapter but ushered in another filled with grueling legal battles and emotional turmoil. Olivia did not take the divorce filing lightly. She fought tooth and nail, demanding more than she deserved, using every possible tactic to gain leverage. But thanks to Ethan's meticulous preparation, each of her efforts fell flat. Ethan's forensic accountant uncovered details Olivia hadn't anticipated. My inheritance, including the assets my late father had left me, was securely categorized as separate property, untouchable under community property laws. We also tracked her reckless spending, documenting purchases she had made without my knowledge, luxuries that highlighted her entitlement and poor judgment. At the heart of our strategy was the evidence of her infidelity. Olivia's relationship with Durek wasn't just an emotional betrayal, it was a legal one. California's no-fault divorce laws might not penalize cheaters directly, but her blatant disregard for our marriage made her claims for alimony look opportunistic and hollow. The court proceedings were draining, each session a reminder of the life I thought I had and the lies that had torn it apart. Olivia's demeanor oscillated between defiance and desperation. She cried in front of the judge, claiming that she had loved me and only made a mistake. But the calm, damning facts we presented overshadowed her theatrics. The judge's ruling reflected the strength of Ethan's case. Olivia walked away with far less than she had hoped, just a fraction of our joint property and a modest settlement. She left the courtroom furious, but I didn't care. The weight of her betrayal no longer shackled me. Once the legal dust settled, I realized how much I needed a fresh start. My life in the city, once a badge of success, now felt like a prison. Every street, every building, was a reminder of the man I used to be, the man Olivia had taken advantage of. I thought back to a dream I'd had for years but never pursued, a simpler life, one with tangible work and honest people. After some research, I found a cattle ranch 3 hours outside the city looking for hands. It wasn't glamorous, and the pay was modest, but that wasn't the point. I needed something real, something that would ground me. The first days on the ranch were humbling. Bill, the gruff, no-nonsense owner, looked at me like I didn't belong, and honestly, I didn't. I was a city boy with soft hands and no experience. The other ranch hands were kind but amused by my ineptitude. I struggled with the simplest tasks, saddling a horse, digging post holes, or even walking across uneven terrain without tripping. But each failure fueled my determination. Slowly, I began to find my rhythm. Mornings started before dawn with the smell of hay and coffee. The work was backbreaking, but it was satisfying in a way my corporate job had never been. By the time I collapsed into bed each night, my body ached in every possible place, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. The camaraderie of the ranch hands also became a source of unexpected comfort. Tom, a lanky, mustachioed man about my age, took me under his wing. He showed me the ropes with a mixture of patience and teasing. Over time, I earned their respect, proving that I wasn't just a city slicker playing cowboy. One afternoon, Bill called me over after a particularly grueling day of fence repairs. He studied me with his usual critical eye but gave a short nod of approval. "You've got grit," he said simply. Coming from Bill, it was the highest praise I could have asked for. As the weeks turned into months, I started to feel like a new man. The stress and bitterness I carried with me from the city began to fade. My days were filled with honest work, and my nights were spent laughing with the ranch hands over beers and hearty meals. It was during a supply run to the local feed store that I met Sarah. She was the daughter of the store's owner, a petite brunette with a quick smile and a down-to-earth charm that caught me off guard. At first, I kept our interactions casual, small talk as we loaded bags of feed into the truck. But Sarah had a way of drawing people out, and before long, I found myself looking forward to our conversations. One day, she invited me to a bonfire at Miller's Pond, a gathering of locals that promised beer, music, and good company. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to socialize beyond the ranch. But Tom's words stuck with me: "You've got to stop shutting yourself off. Life moves on whether you're ready or not." At the bonfire, Sarah and I found ourselves sitting apart from the crowd, watching the flames crackle in the cool night air. She asked me why I left the city, and for the first time, I told someone the whole story. She listened without judgment, her hand brushing mine in quiet solidarity. The months that followed were a blur of work and slow, tentative steps toward a new kind of happiness. Sarah and I spent more time together, from coffee dates to long walks along the ranch fence line. She never pushed for more than I was ready to give, letting me heal at my own pace. One evening, as we watched the sun dip below the hills, Sarah told me she'd been offered a job in Chicago, a dream opportunity she'd worked toward for years. But she wasn't sure if she wanted to take it. When I asked why, her answer stunned me: "Because of you, Jack. I think I'm falling in love with you." Her confession forced me to confront my own feelings. I realized how much Sarah had come to mean to me, how she had helped me rediscover trust and joy. The thought of her leaving was unbearable. That night, I made a decision. I told her I was falling for her too, even if I still had scars from the past. I wasn't ready to lose her, and for the first time in years, I felt hope for a future I could build, not just survive. 5 years later, my life is unrecognizable from the chaos of that April day. As I lean against the newly mended fence in the south pasture, the summer sun beating down on me, I feel an overwhelming sense of peace and pride. After the divorce, I stayed on the ranch, working hard to prove my worth. A year later, Bill decided to retire, and with Tom as my partner, we purchased the ranch together. It wasn't easy. We poured every ounce of effort and every spare penny into making it work, but it's ours now, a thriving operation that I'm proud to call home. Sarah stayed too. She turned down the job in Chicago, deciding instead to help her father expand the family feed store. We dated for a year before I proposed, and now we've been happily married for 3. Sarah's warmth, patience, and steady love became the foundation of the life I never thought I'd have again. The ranch house is no longer just a place to work, it's a home, filled with laughter, love, and family. As I walk back toward the house, I see Sarah sitting on the porch, cradling our 6-month-old daughter, Emma. She waves when she spots me, her smile as radiant as the day I met her. "Dinner's almost ready," she calls out. "Go wash up." I jog up the steps, pressing a quick kiss to her forehead and another to Emma's soft, downy head. The simple joy of this moment is something I could have never imagined during the darkest days of my life. Inside, the hallway mirror catches my reflection as I pass. The man staring back at me is different, tanned, weathered, with lines around his eyes from too much sun and too much laughter. The slick, stressed businessman I used to be feels like a distant memory. I occasionally think about Olivia, though less often as time passes. From what I've heard, her life hasn't gone the way she planned. Things didn't work out with Durek, and she's now on her 3rd marriage, struggling financially. When I think about her now, it's with a twinge of sadness but no bitterness. Losing her wasn't the end of my life, it was the beginning of a better one. As the sun sets over the ranch that evening, Sarah and I sit on the porch, watching the stars come out. Emma sleeps soundly in Sarah's arms, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. The cool breeze carries the scent of hay and wildflowers, a reminder of how far I've come. Life has a funny way of working out. What started as heartbreak became the foundation for everything I have now: a home, a family, and a life built on love, trust, and hard work. This is where I belong. This is my happy ending. If you want more inspiring content, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more stories like this one. See you there.